English 12 ERWC families. I'm Christina Ray, and I am your student's ERWC teacher. It's so nice to meet you on this virtual back-to-school night. Just wanted to give you a little bit of information about ERWC and let you know where you can find more information in case you have some questions. First off, just a little bit about me. I have all of my education, as far as higher education, from UC Davis. I got my bachelor's in communications with minors in psychology and sociology with an emphasis on sociology of law. Thought I wanted to be a social worker. Turns out I did not want to be a social worker, but I did still want to work with youth. I learned that working in a non-public school in a residential treatment facility. So I headed back to Davis to get my teaching credential. I am credentialed in English, drama, and sociology with a master's in education that also came from UC Davis. So if your kid wants to go to Davis and they have any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. And then started my career in Fairfield, moved on to a charter school in Davis, and this is now my 8th year at Vista Del Lago, where I absolutely love this community, love these students, just think it's a great campus. I am the English division lead. I also fill a few other roles here on campus. I'm the advisory coordinator. I'm also the cheerleading advisor. I advise a few clubs. I co-direct the musical with my co-teacher Kyle Hadley. Lots of shoes, but it's a wonderful job, and I truly love working with your students. Just in this second week of school, I'm having a blast already, and it's so nice to be back on campus. A little bit about the way my classroom runs. I truly believe that respect should always be mutual in the classroom, so we do operate kind of in that philosophy in my room. We worked to develop norms together, and I was super happy that in both classes, respect was something that all of your students also said that they valued in the class. I believe in clear communication on all assignments, so you will see that students often have sometimes a little bit of wordy directions, because I think it's super important that they have clear and open communication from me. I believe in an open and non-threatening classroom environment. We do have quite a bit of discussion in this classroom, and so because of that, I want to be sure that your student is always feeling like they are supported and able to speak their voice, even if their opinion might not be a popular one in the classroom. And I'll always provide clear expectations, and the best way that I feel we can do that in ERWC is through the use of rubrics. We have rubrics for everything, whether it's a formative assignment or a summative assignment. You can expect that your student is evaluated on a rubric, which takes a lot of the subjectivity out of grading. My fellow ERWC teachers and I do norm using those rubrics, so big fan of the rubric up in here. As far as grading goes, grades are weighted. Formative assessments in this 12th grade year do account for only 10% of the grade. So at this point in their English education, this is when we see the lowest amount of credit being given to those formatives. They really are just practice. They're assessments for learning to help them get to that summative assessment, which we see as the assessment of learning. So the formative assessment is the opportunity for them to get that super valuable feedback from me, feedback from their peers, and most importantly, self-evaluation. I really do believe that it's incredibly important that students are always analytical of their own learning and where they are in progression towards those learning targets. Just today I was talking to them about the research that proves how important it is that students engage in what we call self-reported grades, which isn't quite as exciting as it sounds, but it is that act of self-assessment. So all of those steps lead to those summative assessments, which do make up 90% of the grade. You'll also see in the gradebook a category that's called ungraded. And you will see things go into that category, but they do not affect the grade. It's just for their knowledge. So we also do things that are just for practice. So you might see something first go in as ungraded, and that's just to practice the skill, then formatively, then summatively. And the reason I put the ungraded thing in the gradebook is so that that student and you and me, when I look back, we can see the progression of the learning on that specific target or on that band of the rubric. As far as late work, formative work must be submitted before the summative for feedback, and formative work will not be accepted after a summative has passed, because then it's no longer valuable, it's no longer worth anything, it's no longer meaningful. The reason we do the formative is to prepare for the summative, so I do ask that students do not submit formative following the summative, and summatives that are over a week late may not be accepted. So I ask students to keep that in mind as well. As far as the course overview, ERWC stands for Expository Reading and Writing Curriculum. It was developed by the CSU, and there are a few benefits that exist with this course. If a student had scored conditionally ready on the EAP, if they pass ERWC with a C or better, they are then considered ready. So really, it's a course that can help to save them a little bit of time, a little bit of money if they're heading off to college. So kind of a benefit of ERWC. I also think it's a really nice course in that it focuses primarily on rhetorical analysis and expository writing. So something that's going to benefit them regardless of what they're doing in the future. It's not just focused on those literary analysis skills that we might typically see in an English class. So I'm a big fan of the course here that the CSU developed. We're going to tackle a few different units here, so just to give a brief overview, and the course expectations go into much more detail here. We start with rhetorical analysis. We are in the thick of this unit right now. They're critically analyzing speeches through a rhetorical lens. From there, we're moving into a unit that is new to ERWC, and so new to Vista as well, called the Daily Meet, where they're going to work on reading against the grain, really critically analyzing what a writer does, and they're also going to practice the use of rhetorical grammar in their own writing while they then kind of tear apart what that writer has done. We then move into our first full text study of John Krakauer's Into the Wild, a text that frequently sparks quite a bit of hot debate in the classroom because students either love Chris McCandless or hate him. They love John Krakauer or they hate him. So it's a fun one. We're going to end this unit with the Socratic seminar this year since we are back in person. The last couple years we've kind of gotten away from it, so we're really excited to bring it back to that one. And then we'll come into language, gender, and culture, an exploration of voice and style. We're kind of tying this one into the end of Into the Wild to end out the term, or the quarter, sorry, with the persuasive speech. We then pick up the next quarter with inquiry and research, seeking answers to some of our biggest seemingly unanswerable questions, a focus on metacognition here, and your students will write a summative annotated bibliography to really practice those research skills that will come so in handy in the future. We move into dystopian fiction with our second full text study. We will be reading together George Orwell's 1984. We do read much of this text together in class, and we will be engaging in close reading of the text and critical literary analysis, primarily through a historical lens. We'll also engage in the psychological lens and sort of get an introduction to this idea of literary lenses. This is also where we write our, if we were to have a capstone unit that has the meatiest of summatives, this would be it. This is a research-based literary criticism essay that students get to examine different literary theories and connect them to sociological theories or psychological theories or aspects of history. It's a fascinating essay. Students have tons of prompts to choose from. It's been a very successful unit in the past, so I'm very excited to be engaging with your students on this unit. And then we end with literature circles, which we can't wait to finally do in person. Your students will get to form literature circles with their peers, choose a text. So we'll be reading all sorts of texts in this class at the same time. Different teams will select a different book based upon their interests, their reading levels, what they want to look through. They'll select different literary lenses, and then the summative here, they will film a summative lit chat. So a discussion-based summative that demonstrates not only their ability to use those lenses, but to also kind of tie all those skills together of reading against the grain and close reading, looking at an author's purpose and examining what they're doing and why they're doing it. So it should be a really fun year this year. As far as the reason that we grade the students the way that we do in the English department, we really do believe that the purpose of grades is to communicate the information about student achievement to parents and to others, including students, stakeholders, admin, teachers, myself. I think it's important that I'm able to see student grades to see what it is that we maybe need to reteach or visit again, what's working well. It's to provide that information for students for self-evaluation, to help to identify groups of students for educational pathways or programs, also for intervention. We do utilize flex time in this class. We do plan interventions ahead of time, the other two ERWC teachers and I. It is to provide incentives for students to learn. We would be kidding ourselves if we said that students weren't incentivized by grades. They certainly do act that way. And it also helps us to evaluate the effectiveness of instructional programs. Now, when we look at 100 different levels, and even more when we look at 0.5s or 0.25s added in there, it gets a little more challenging. So really working to help students to identify their learning as descriptions of what they can do as opposed to percentages or numbers. We're looking at skills and we're looking at learning targets as opposed to assignments. And so the rubric language that you'll see in the 6-point scale sort of helps us to get there. So every single assignment that you see go into the gradebook will be scored from 1 to 6. There will be no 0.5s. There won't be anything that goes in above 6, just 1 through 6. And you will see as well that many assignments go in as more than one learning target. So for example, an essay might go in as 5 different assignments because there's 5 different bands of the rubric. Some essays we're only focusing on a couple skills, perhaps just claim and cohesion and development. And so you'll only see those 3 go in there. But this scale demonstrates what we're looking at when we look at those numbers 1 through 6, from unsatisfactory to exemplary. And your students have actually developed their own language here. In one of the classes, the 6 stands for my mom will be happy. And then in another one of the classes, the 1 stands for dog water soaked socks, which sounds pretty unpleasant. So they've developed their rubric language. They're learning to talk about their knowledge and their skills in a way that's not just a number. So it helps them to really piece it apart. As far as learning more about the course, my teacher page is where the course expectations are posted. There is a spot for you to complete a digital signature at the bottom. I ask that you please do complete that. I will be sending out an email early next week with that information as well, in case anyone's not watching this super entertaining and a little bit lengthy video. My Google site is also somewhere where I put information, primarily rubrics and other resources. Every so often I'll post weekly updates as well. Google Classroom is the hub that's just for students. I know that there is an opportunity for parents to get on Google Classroom. However, it's the student hub really. It's where I post student assignments, student activities, digital collaboration. If for any reason your student is quarantined, the agendas are always up on Google Classroom as well, and I am completely willing to work with them to get them caught up and make sure that they don't fall behind if they are in that situation. So making sure that we stay on top of their learning together, because the last thing I want is for any student in my class to ever fall behind. Grades will be updated frequently. I will be sure to stay on top of that. And I'm always open to communicate with you about your students' learning. Not so much about grades, but about learning. I really, truly do believe that every student can and will succeed in my classroom. I follow the belief that all means all, and that's that all students can succeed, all students will succeed. So if you ever have any questions about your student or there's anything else about the course, feel free to email me. The best way to reach me is via email. I'm not even sure if the phone in my classroom rings during the day, and after school, I'm typically off in the gym with the cheerleaders or in meetings or who knows where, but I'm not often just sitting right here staring at the phone. However, my email literally shows up on my watch. So email is the easiest way to reach me at cray@fcusd.org, and I will be sure to get back to you. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this rather lengthy, a little wordy video, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye.